Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Speaking out over the urgent need for more health care.
If you cut your finger or break your finger, don't go to Surrey Memorial Hospital.
It's well known that Surrey Memorial is overloaded.
People in Surrey question why they're being left behind. Plus, a fixture in Vancouver's bar and restaurant scene files for creditor protection.
Some of the areas that we've operated in have become really tough to operate in. And then on top of that, we had to take on a lot of debt through the pandemic.
What it means for the industry and hundreds of employees. Tributes to the queen of rock and roll, Tina Turner. And why one BC artist is especially heartbroken by the loss of a legend.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Tonight, residents in Surrey are sharing why they avoid that city's hospital altogether. It comes one day after the most senior doctor at Surrey Memorial said the understaffing and overcrowding problems have him worried sick. The CBC's Zara Premji is looking into the concern that the province is not properly responding to the problem.
If you cut your finger or break your finger, don't go to Surrey Memorial Hospital.
Even in an emergency, some Surrey residents say they won't go to Surrey Memorial Hospital's ER.
It's just chaos in there. People waiting in the halls. There's open sores, open wounds.
Last week, dozens of physicians released a letter describing what they call a crisis in the emergency department, concerns many have experienced firsthand.
Really busy, so we need another hospital and more staff, more doctors, nurses and health. Because we can't, they are already so busy and we can't put more burden on them.
The province says it's addressing the concerns around the overcrowding and long waits by encouraging the use of urgent care centres.
I didn't even know this service exists. It's nice that they have it. Obviously we need it, but it's not enough. As you can see, there's a long line up here. So.
For many, it's either a long lineup at urgent care or a long lineup at the hospital, and they're left feeling helpless.
The system is completely broken. It's broken in Surrey.
Big picture, the province says it's taken additional steps to address the problem, and not just in Surrey.
We are leading the country in the recruitment and credential recognition of internationally trained nurses, for example. We need to get more bodies into our hospitals to provide that support, more skilled workers.
But community members say more action is needed and worry more people may die before the hospital's issues are addressed.
It's garbage. It's a third world country over there. And I'm just flabbergasted at how we're the fastest growing city in North America and only have one hospital.
And they're all calling on the province to not just bring in more doctors and nurses, but to get a new hospital built and fast. Zara Premji, CBC News, Surrey.
While Surrey is hardly the only community in BC struggling with a doctor shortage and packed hallways full of patients, consider the city's size and then consider how many hospitals it actually has. The most recent estimate from the province pegs Surrey's population at more than 633,000, with the city stretching out more than 316 square kilometers. It has one acute care hospital, Surrey Memorial. Compare that now to a place like Vancouver, where the municipal population is less than 100,000 more than Surrey and is spread out over a similar landmass at just 115 square kilometers. It has 4 acute care hospitals as well as 2 others, BC Children's and BC Women's, offering specialized care overseen by the province. Staying in Surrey, there could soon be some resolve to the city's police transition saga, with the final decision expected from council in June. The province has strongly recommended the city go with the Surrey Police Service over the RCMP, with $150 million in provincial money to help with that move. Tonight, Mira Baines is hearing from the chief of Surrey Police, who says the toll on officers is mounting.
We'd like to see some finality. We'd like to see some diary dates of when the decision will be.
Surrey Police Service Chief Constable Norm Lipinski issued an open letter today highlighting concerns for officers, including 33 who are trained but not permitted to integrate yet.
What we tend to forget is the human factor. I've got 400 employees, and there is a certain level of stress, certain level of frustration. both with the SPS and the RCMP about this project. We've been at this for 2.5 years, and we look forward to moving it forward.
The process seems stalled, with Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke refusing to sign a non-disclosure agreement for a copy of the non-redacted version of the province's report. She's unavailable and at a conference in Toronto today. Locke has said she still wants to reverse the transition back to the RCMP, despite the province's recommendation to continue with establishing a municipal police force.
I think what the RCMP would say is that we can provide you with a policing model tailor-made to your community and whatever needs you have, and are more than willing to work and collaborate with you to make that happen.
Premier David Eby has said ministry staff and the city are working together, and the issue could go before City Council soon.
There's a strong recommendation from the Minister of Public Safety about a direction here. And our advice is that there's an upcoming City Council meeting June 5th. When the report will be presented, and there'll be debate about this.
Councillor Linda Annis has signed the NDA and is encouraging other councillors to do so too.
I think it's absolutely incumbent on each and every council member to sign the NDA. It's the best way we can get the most information possible when we're moving forward with a decision as important as this.
Last November, Council voted to push forward to request the province to go back to the RCMP. It was a 5-4 vote. But now on the table is $150 million in provincial money to help move ahead with SPS. Whether or not Surrey's mayor agrees to sign an NDA to look at the province's redacted report, it's clear the issue isn't settled and it will likely come to a head this summer. Mira Baines, CBC News, Surrey.
The provincial government has increased funding for immigration settlement services from $6 million to $25.6 million every year. This is in an effort to ease the process of integration for newcomers to BC, help them find suitable employment and access education and health care. International students and foreign workers will be included. The increased budget will be implemented in spring of 2024 and is expected to serve more than 40,000 clients per year. Well, the descendants of the Komagata Maru have welcomed a recommendation by the City of Vancouver staff to rename a street after the steamship. It has been recommended the street where Canada Place is located be given the secondary name Komagata Maru Place. The vessel carrying nearly 400 immigrants from India was turned away from BC in 1914, even though the passengers were British subjects. After months docked in the water, they were forced to return to India, where many were shot and killed. The Canadian government has since acknowledged that it was a racist act. The Komagata Maru Society says they first contacted the city 5 years ago about naming a street.
It is very near where, we can even see from that street where the Komagata Maru was detained in the water 200 meters away. The city agreed with me, and this is a very good idea.
The proposal by city staff coincides with the 109th anniversary of the incident and will go before council on Tuesday. Well, a big player in Vancouver's food and drinking culture is struggling. Things have gotten so bad for the Donnelly Group that it's now seeking creditor protection, blaming the pandemic and the economic downturn. Dan Burritt is outside a Donnelly-owned pub in Yaletown. Dan, what's happening to staff?
Well, nothing for now, Anita. Donnelly Group says its staff at its 16 bars, pubs, and restaurants, like Hundy's Eatery here on Homer Street, will stay open. That is good news for the several hundred workers across Canada and many here in Vancouver who work at places like the Lamplighter, Butcher and Bullock, Cinema, Three Brits, Isabel's, Hundy, and the Stockroom, among other watering holes. The company says it sought creditor protection to deal with its debt and keep things running. It essentially gives them time to restructure their finances and avoid possible bankruptcy. The founder says rising rent during the pandemic, increasing minimum wages, and not being able to keep staff were major factors. Then inflation hit.
50% of the employees in downtown business districts have yet to return to work, and if they are, they're returning in to a hybrid workspace. You look at what's happening in areas like Gastown, being ghost towns now, and Granville Street, what's happened since Nordstrom's closed and Old Navy's closed down. It's some of the areas that we've operated in have become really tough to operate in.
The Alliance of Beverage Licensees of BC and its industry trade group says the move is a sign of how devastating the pandemic has been to the hospitality industry. It notes many pubs and restaurants like Donnelly took on debt to stay afloat.
And those payments are thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a month at a time when inflation is increasing and consumer demand is decreasing. So we're simply not making money. About 50% of the hospitality industry is barely breaking even or actually losing money right now.
Guinard says he and other industry trade groups are actually lobbying the federal government to extend the loan repayment for several years. Ottawa says that deadline is still the end of this year. Anita.
Dan Burrett tonight. Thank you. A mysterious case of tree assassination has officials with the city of Kelowna stumped. For the third time this year, someone has deliberately killed a mature tree with a drill and herbicide. In a small wooded park along Sunset Drive in Kelowna, someone has poisoned this 60-foot-tall cottonwood tree standing near a large condo tower. It's the third case of tree poisoning in Kelowna in the past year. Now city officials are asking for the public's help to identify the culprits who poisoned the mature tree. Anyone with information relating to these incidents is asked to contact the RCMP. Another setback for bike advocates in Metro Vancouver. A few days after the Stanley Park temporary lane was removed, the city of Richmond did its own backpedaling on a new proposed route. Our Justin McElroy joins us now. Justin, what was this route and why was it defeated?
Yeah, this proposed route along Steveston Highway in the south of Richmond has been on the books for more than a decade and approved preliminarily by councils again and again. If you take a look at this map, it's a few kilometers on Steveston Highway, not really a highway, but it's between Number 2 Road and Shell Road. It's somewhat busy, well, it's fairly busy, but there's little space for cyclists to go through. Now, the city had proposed and had gotten money from TransLink to put a multi-use path to the south side of the road that would have cyclists, people walking, everyone else being able to use it. But they needed $2.5 million. And so by a 5-4 vote, council voted against providing that additional budget that they needed to do to get this over the line. A number of councillors criticizing the placement of the route, saying that it should be further north where there's already a bike lane in place, as well as criticizing TransLink for essentially saying that this was their preferred place to put it over perhaps the desires of local residents.
Well, I think that this option, which separates the pedestrians from the bi-directional cyclists, is the only way to go. And we don't have to take out one tree on Williams. We don't have to remove the sidewalk. It's going to be a cheaper, more efficient option. And that's what I think we should be working towards.
I felt we were held hostage, literally. You either take it or leave it. Too bad, you know. But we really believe in cycling. We really believe in transportation. But I don't buy it.
Now, again, councillors had approved this on a preliminary scale several times before, but it was only after the public got full wind of what was happening that a number of them got upset. A letter writing campaign happened, and it certainly had an impact on a number of councillors that voted against giving that funding to get this over the line yesterday.
And it seems like every city in Metro Vancouver in the province has its own bike saga. Justin, can you tell us about this regional bike system that TransLink wants to see happen?
Well, and that's the thing. They were going to provide $5 million of the $11.5 million for this line because it is part of the agreed-on 850-kilometer cycling network throughout the region. If you take a look at this map right here, you have all these lines. It sort of looks like a giant transit line, but in fact, these are all places that they want to have bike routes. And if we zoom in, you can see in more detail just where all of them are. The bottom blue line there in Richmond is where the Steveston one was going to be, that council had said that they wanted to be happening, that TransLink had said they would provide that money for. But we see this in a lot of places. You know, TransLink and higher levels of government can say they want things to happen for infrastructure, but at the end of the day, it's the local government that has to sign off on it. Sometimes they say yes. In Richmond yesterday, they said no.
Justin McElroy reporting tonight. Thank you. Signs of a crisis among international students. Experts warn many are experiencing a mental health issue far from home. More after the break. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Kashmir is the disputed region between India and Pakistan, and it's been fought over since the late 1940s. This week, India is hosting a controversial G20 event there, and our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji is the only Canadian journalist inside the territory.
In the heart of the Kashmir Valley, the views are unparalleled, as is the security. A G20 summit on tourism held under the tightest of conditions, in disputed territory. For India, it's an irresistible opportunity to talk tourism. Delegates from around the world hearing that more than 18 million tourists flocked to the region last year, a high for an area plagued by decades of insurgency against Indian rule. India is keen to project Kashmir as stable, peaceful, ready for development.
This is the first high-level international meeting in Kashmir since India abruptly revoked its special status in 2019, folding its section of the Muslim-majority region into a federal territory under New Delhi's direct rule. Both India and Pakistan claim Kashmir in full, but only control parts of it.
I welcome you all to China and Saudi Arabia may have boycotted and Pakistan stewed over the summit and its location, but India took pains to defend it.
Jammu Kashmir has moved on, and I would say the common man walking on the streets of Srinagar wants to be a part of the development journey led by Prime Minister Modi.
But at this local market, there's unease and despair. Many in Srinagar are bristling at the increased checkpoints.
If there is normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir, what makes you to create this much of huge burden, huge amount of security personnel to deploy in this state? There is a contradiction.
Inside, the market is virtually empty. Manzoor Ahmed blames that on the heavily armed soldiers patrolling the streets. Kashmiris are fearful. They're not leaving the house, and it's hurting our businesses, he says. Outside, the anger is palpable. Are people afraid to talk about what life is like here, I ask? Barabar. That's right, they say. We are living in fear, this man says. The security forces are everywhere. Every Kashmiri is depressed. Even as I speak with you, he tells me, I'm scared that they might be watching and will harass me later. There is no peace. The G20 campaign is just a facade. It's one version of life here projected to the world. A beautiful setting in a restive Kashmir that simmers quietly. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Srinagar.
Workers at a funeral home in Toronto are speaking out about what they say is a worrying trend. They're repatriating the remains of more and more Indians who have come to Canada to study. As Kirtana Sasitharan tells us, some say it highlights a need for more support for international students.
The remains of Indian students back to their home country and sees what he calls a troubling trend, a rise of deaths.
We're about 4 to 5 a month right now, currently as we stand, so it has gone up throughout the years.
Directors at the Lotus Funeral Home say they have seen an increase in the number of deaths, some caused by overdose or suicide. They have repatriated remains of students from Ontario, Manitoba, New Brunswick, and PEI.
Being as a parent, that when I see their how they died, the cause of death, that makes me upset by myself. Why this happening?
The funeral home says they repatriated 8 young Indian nationals in 2018. In 2022, it was 33. Citing privacy concerns, they wouldn't specify how many of those deaths are mental health related.
Officially, it's hard to get a firm grip on how big of an issue this is. The Canadian government doesn't track it, and CBC didn't hear back from the Indian embassy in Ottawa. But here in Toronto, the Indian consulate tells me 25 students died last year in this province alone, almost a third from suicide. And by March of this year, 2 more suicides. More recent deaths remain under investigation.
That's much higher than the national suicide rate.
They can't, stay upon the expectations of their families and friends. I mean, from South Asian perspective, it's a matter of life and death.
Staff at Punjabi Community Health Services offer supports for students.
A lot of it's been being homesick. A lot of these folks come from large families where somebody's checking in on them, asking them how their day was, things like that. And when they come here, a lot of them are alone.
Callan says the organization has intervened in the past, going so far as sending emotionally struggling students back to India to be with their families before it's too late.
The families are very thankful. They were able to understand what their child was going through.
Colleges Ontario is taking notice too. They say they will provide more information to international students on how they can access mental health support. Kirtan Asasi Theron, CBC News, Toronto.
And BC international students are facing the same pressures seen across Canada. For insight into the struggles they are facing, I'm joined by Armand Dillon. He's an international student and the former president of the Kwantlen University Student Organization. Armand, we saw a little bit there, we heard a little bit there about what's happening, but can you give us a better sense of the pressures that these students are facing here?
There are a lot of challenges that are faced by international students who come to study in Canada, which are not limited to the financial stress they are faced by and the stress they feel when they leave their family and friends back in the home country. So it's a lot that comes together and contributes to the stress.
And how much does cost of living play into this? Because it's expensive to be here.
Yes, that's totally true, and it's very expensive to be in the expensive cities such as Vancouver and Surrey, and the cost of living, and which also includes the tuition fees, the high tuition fees that is being paid by international students. So that is all one part that contributes to the stress as well.
Just really quickly here, can you talk about the challenges these people face in getting mental health access?
Yes, for sure. The international students have a lack of awareness about the resources that are available to them for the mental health challenges that they face, which include several resources by their student unions and by the provincial government, such as Here to Talk as well. So I think it's very important to increase the awareness through the community welfare programs as well, so that international students can also come forward and share about their mental health challenges so that those can be solved as a community as a whole.
Armand Dillon is the former president of the Kwantlen University Student Organization, as well as an international student himself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The songs of summer are here as this year's Peony concert lineup has been announced. To find out what you'll be dancing to in August, stick with us.
If you've got to be the best to survive in the music business, Tina Turner's got to be top of the heap. At 54, she's been doing this for more than 30 years. In rock and roll, that's quite an accomplishment. But for Tina Turner, it was no accident.
I had a dream. My dream was when I decided that I wanted to fulfill my dreams in terms of really being a big star, not egotistically, but...
You thought that when you were a little girl?
What the little girl was, I thought being a star was a big star on the door and a very clean and polished room. And then when I became a star, it was dressing in a dusty, crated room, a storage room, and then a dingy little hut.
But not anymore. Now
Not
it's the
anymore.
Four Seasons.
So that was my dream. That was my dream, to have the best.
So you didn't have to sacrifice anything for it?
My love life was sacrificed in the first 7 years of my success. I didn't have love, a lover, a boyfriend. You know, I just went to work. So, but it's my determination. Some people don't have that tenacity in terms of getting where they want and just making it happen.
So what's your definition of a survivor?
Patience, determination.
My 57-year-old father thinks you're great. The kid next door thinks you're great. You span a lot of generations. What is it about you that everybody really likes?
I want to be friendly. You know, I don't want to be a typical snotty star. Because you sing well and because you dress nice clothes, does that make you a wonderful person? No.
Is it easy to become that, though, when you're famous and rich and
some.
everybody... I mean, you can't walk through a mall anymore, I bet. And
yeah, I do sometimes, and people do understand if I say, oh, not today, I just want to do some shopping. Sometimes I do.
My last question here, where's Tina Turner going to be in 10 years? Do you have any idea? Are you still going to be singing, or are you still...
Well, I thought not. But then, you see, I would like to act. And I do believe that if I'm healthy and physically in shape, if a movie came, I'm just about sure if it was something I really wanted, I would take it. You know, I just might be lingering around for a very long time. But on the other hand, if I could say to you what I would like to do, I would like to have it made in the shade, so to speak. You know that expression? It's the Southern expression. Just blossom, doing exactly what I want to do, but that's not the life.
But yeah, it is. I mean, you should be able to do that now.
Yes, but you get a bit bored, I think, somehow. So you have to do something to stimulate the mind. Something must be happening, I think.
Joanna Wagstaff is away tonight. Amy Bell is here, and Amy, a nice dose of sunshine today.
Not a bad day across much of the province. Certainly trended cooler right across the board. And we did have that low pressure system move in Monday and Tuesday. That brought a lot of rain to the northeastern portions of the province and much cooler temperatures. So that certainly did help with the smoke and a lot of the fires. But we are seeing unsettled weather setting up tomorrow ahead of this high pressure ridge that's coming in. So definitely a transition day for some areas tomorrow. Not on Vancouver Island, though. Tomorrow you're going to enjoy the sunshine. You'll see those temperatures anywhere from the low to mid 20s. Out in the Fraser Valley, though, we have that risk of thunderstorms, and we see that risk continuing right through Prince George, Williams Lake, and all throughout towards Cranbrook. So that is where we're going to have to keep an eye on any new fires and lightning strikes. Victoria at 23. Not a bad day in Prince Rupert, 15 with a mix of sun and cloud. And then for us, for Vancouver, for the next 5 days, 2 hot days, tomorrow and Friday. Peak heat on Friday when we reach 27 inland. We're looking at much cooler and more comfortable temperatures, though, for the weekend. 20 for the high on Saturday, 19 for Sunday. And sticking with a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 20 degrees on Monday.
Thanks, Amy. Well, the PNE has announced its lineup for the 2023 Fair Concert Series. Starting August 19th until September 4th, music fans can head down to the grounds to check out world-famous artists like Jason Derulo and Young Gravy. And just in time for the Barbie movie, Danish band Aqua will bring their unmistakable brand of Europop. Closing out the shows will be Canadian group Blue Rodeo. As always, concertgoers will need a Fairgate pass as well as a paid concert ticket. The full list of artists can be found on the PNE website. And finally tonight, condolences are pouring in for the queen of rock and roll. Tina Turner has died at the age of 83. Her publicist says Turner died after a long illness. She is one of rock and roll's most famous voices and had hits including Proud Mary and The Best. She became a feminist icon after leaving her then husband and musical collaborator Ike Turner.
She's the ultimate example of courage, triumph, and survival. She has inspired so many women to move on after a bad relationship or being abused or just about anything.
Turner retired from show business after a successful world tour in 2008 and 2009. A whole lot of people tonight saying simply the best. Thanks for being with us on CBC Vancouver News, and we'll see you tomorrow.